Yeah, the psychedelic hippie shit just never appealed to me that much, you know? Can I keep it 100 with you guys? I just do not like the hippie movement, or mysticism, or spiritualism, or anything else, or any of that shit that people open their minds with. Because it feels like, and this could be me being extremely cynical, because it seems to me like out here in the real world, real humans have a lot of real problems, and we can fix those with strong empirical analysis and by caring a lot about the world that we live in and effectively integrating ourselves into it in a way to maximize outcomes for ourselves and others, you know? And it seems like so much of psychedelic culture is escaping it. It's escapism to its like final step, not just like media that's fun to watch to take a break for a little while, but sometimes it goes to the point where it's like completely leaving reality. I mean, it all devolved into drug-fueled cult bullshit anyway. That's true, the hippie movement did completely devolve into drug-fueled cultist bullshit with a ton of sexual abuse, betrayal, and a lot of it got like completely bowled over because everyone was too high to realize how bad things got. It's empirically awesome to trip. Oh no, again, I'm not saying it's bad to take psychedelics. I'm saying the whole culture doesn't appeal to me. Because to be totally real, a lot of hippie culture was like affluent, trust fund white boys and girls escaping bullshit society by using their money to like just live off the back of their trust funds or just sort of like bum around. And if you want to like do that, that's great and all, but there are real problems that real people are experiencing, and sometimes like escapism isn't a very good, like, prescriptive social, yeah, turn on, tune in, drop out. Maybe the Beverly Hills hippies who were around were like that. No, I'm talking about the hippie movement, like, actually the history of what happened in the 60s and 70s and stuff. A lot of them had their fun when they were kids, but eventually they had to pay the bills, so they actually sat down and got jobs and became stalwart conservatives and kicked the ladder out from the feet of everyone else who wanted to live the bohemian lifestyle they got to briefly enjoy. I've never known a modern person to take psychedelics to be a hippie. There was some of it in Humboldt, but for the most part, I'm just kind of talking about a cultural vibe, you know? Those people were the rich ones, not the movement. Yeah, but what did the movement do? Apart from its influences on art and culture, I mean, like, politically, what did the movement do? The anti-war movement wasn't mostly hippies. The anti-war movement was mostly, like, militantly political left-leaning people. Like, the hippie movement wasn't what scared Washington, it was student activists, you know? And feminism wasn't them either. The hippie movement actually had a really troubled history with women's rights because there was a lot of sexual abuse that took place at the, like, upper and lower levels. And like, people kind of looked past it because the spirit of free love was used as a justifying mechanism for ignoring consent or boundaries, and a lot of people did a lot of really fucked up stuff and carried trauma from it. So, and it certainly wasn't the fucking civil rights movement. That wasn't done by hippies. That was done by civil rights protesters. So what did they do? Made music? I don't know. Like, okay. It's not like a political vibe that I'm dabbing all over right now. I'm not dabbing all over these vibes, man. Okay? What about just strictly the hippie aesthetic? Thoughts on that? Oh, I think it's obnoxious as hell. But you do you, right? Yeah, Joe Rogan is the modern incarnation of the hippie movement. The truth hurts. Seath and Cope. No, Posadas John. I'm not trying to transfer my feelings, like, of the left into now. I don't think that modern hippies are particularly left-leaning. A lot of them are, like, weird anti-vaxxers whose understanding of politics begins and ends at, like, their opinions on police breaking up their, you know, like, get-togethers, which, I mean, I'll probably agree with them on that stuff, but I don't know if I'd call them, like, the left. I mean, the liberal hippie rhetoric you're criticizing as a result of Timothy Leary's involvement with the CIA. He was heavily criticized for research. Possibly. I'm not, like, super expert educated on, like, hippie culture or whatever. It's just, I don't know. Wouldn't Vermin Supreme be considered a hippie? I think, so Vermin Supreme has his own thing going on. I don't mind if individuals want to do their own thing. I don't know if I'd necessarily call him, like, a hippie, but it's, my issue is more with, like, the broader, like, the negative aspects of the broader culture, I know this looks, you know? Like a blended. More so than, like, individuals wanting to do X or Y, you know? Though, as a general rule, I will always be against people who use drugs as a form of escapism to the point where it becomes unhealthy. I will never think that's chill, ever. I have known too many people who have just let drugs ruin them, and they copium their way through the entire fucking thing. Dude, no, I'm just, like, having an experience, you know? Oh, dude, it doesn't hurt, it doesn't harm you, whatever, but, like, slowly it bleeds away who they are, because they're relying on a chemically altered version of themselves to get through life. So I'll always be critical of people who just sort of wildly promote heavy drug use. Weed, I guess, isn't too bad. Same with alcohol. You can use a lot of those two and hold to yourself pretty well.
Well, what are you waiting for?
But even that, people understate, you know? Like, you can have unhealthy drinking habits, even if you don't drink that often. There are a lot of things that can play into that. And with weed, it's the same, you know? And while I'm being controversial, not the alcohol Vaush that is awful for you, I'm saying that it's possible to casually use these things potentially without too much trouble. But while I'm being controversial, okay, people who take weed to help them with depression and anxiety and PTSD and all that other stuff, often, I feel like, prolong the problem that they're experiencing by numbing themselves to the psychological effects of that condition, rather than, like, meaningfully addressing it, you know? Sometimes it feels like it's the psychotropic equivalent of, like, taking painkillers because you have, like, a broken arm instead of, like, getting a splint, you know what I mean? Not to say that you can't healthily take weed while having depression, anxiety, PTSD, but it's possible to take weed or whatever in a way that just hurts your ability to fix these problems, you know? You don't think medicinal weed isn't really a thing? No, I'm saying you can. I'm saying that you can. I'm not making essential claims here. I'm only saying that I've known people who have put off real improvement to themselves because it was easier to cope with it through weed, you know? I've seen this happen with people, you know? Of course, don't overdo it, but you're making essential claims. No, I'm not. At no point have I said anybody who takes weed while having depression or anxiety is coping or whatever. I did not say that. Don't read that into what I'm saying. I'm only saying I know people who do this. And I think a lot of you guys do too, right? Do you guys not know people who have an unhealthy relationship to marijuana? Like, I don't think it's that uncommon, frankly. At the end of the day, maybe this is going to sound essentialist, but I think humans should be able to function as best as they can like this, with nothing affecting the brain. The pure, undiluted, just... Oh, on Adderall. You guys are completely right. That's completely true. People are going to accuse me of hypocrisy here, aren't you? Because you think that Adderall is the same as weed. Okay, I'll address this. I don't think there's anything wrong with taking psych meds that are meant to address chemical imbalances in your brain, like lithium, which I take for bipolar, or Adderall, which I take for ADHD. You could take Lexapro or other antidepressants for depression, like SSRIs. I'm not talking about that stuff. I'm talking about recreational marijuana use. I think you should be able to... Guys, it's a good meme, but if you actually do think that smoking weed is the same as getting, like, prescribed Adderall, then that actually says a lot about you. That's actually a huge problem if you really do think those two things are the same. You're talking about self-medicating, lol? No, not every time a person smokes weed while they're depressed doesn't mean that they're self-medicating. What, are you self-medicating every time a sad person gets drunk? I guess in some sense you are, but not in the same way as a person, like, trying to address some kind of mental condition with psychiatric meds. Are they trying to stunlock, or is chat this stupid? I don't know. I'm actually gonna get triggered because this is actually really unhealthy. It's actually really not good to equivocate those two things, okay? Weed doesn't cure or treat a lot of psychological conditions. What it does is it puts you in a mind state where you're numbed to the negative effects of them, okay? It's like the difference between taking painkillers and taking antibiotics. You recognize that, right? Taking antibiotics trains your body to fight against infection. Taking painkillers just makes it hurt less. You can literally get a prescription for weed, my dude. I know! Then it's a good thing that I've said in this conversation, not all instances of getting weed, taking weed, is unhealthy, and that medical marijuana is legitimate. It's a good thing, then, that I address this. People get so fucking defensive whenever drugs come. Holy shit. Yes, sure, Mortimer, which I'm now having to recontextualize for 10 minutes. Alright, Taste the Rambo, you're getting banned. This is unironically, like... These are unironically, like, really, really, really unhealthy coping mechanisms. If you guys can't tell the difference between psychiatric medication, getting weed on a prescription, and casual marijuana use, and that all of it just blends together in, oh, we take chemicals to help us cope, then that's, like, really bad. There are huge differences between these things. Not to mention, by the way, that often medical marijuana is prescribed not as a treatment to medical problems, but as a way of alleviating the pain from them. Medical marijuana is often prescribed to help alleviate nausea or pain. That doesn't fix the underlying problem. It's not a cure. It's a way of making the condition more tolerable. But getting too sucked into the thing that makes it more tolerable can sometimes hurt you when it comes to efforts to fix those problems. If you have depression, but you smoke all the time, so you're just always in a kind of hazy fog of general contentedness, it can make it difficult. I'm so angry with you guys right now. Or I'm gonna do the thing where I ban everyone again, including myself. I'm actually so angry with you guys. SSRIs don't just cure depression, you have to go through cognitive behavioral therapy for them to actually have the intended results. Not necessarily. Sometimes depression can literally just be caused by a chemical imbalance in your brain. Cognitive behavioral therapy is a good way of overcoming some mental problems that people have. It can be a good way of overcoming trauma or... Well, I mean, it all really does just boil down to trauma, doesn't it? It can be a good way of overcoming some of these issues, but sometimes a person's problem is, their brain makes chemicals bad, and sometimes they can just take a pill for the rest of their life, and that just basically fixes the issue, you know? At least to some varying extent. Do you guys really disagree with the fact that sometimes people abuse marijuana and alcohol to avoid dealing with real, like, mental health problems? Is that seriously, like, a controversial position that I have to spend the next 10 minutes, like, frantically warding off complaints from people who want to jump up and say, well, did you know that sometimes weed is good? Like, yeah. What magic pill or quick solution is there to PTSD? Should you not have some form of help to get through the triggers and rough patches when you go through therapy? I never said it was bad to smoke to help you cope with some of these conditions. Why do you... Please, respond to the words that I say. Respond to the things I say instead of the things you want me to have said, because it would justify the anger you feel. Please. You can't keep doing this to me. Please. Please. It's not good for me. It's not good for my heart. You have to be kinder to me than this, okay? And still not for your own sake. Well, that's my mental problem. Alright. You literally said PTSD with anxiety and depression? Yeah, and I also said there's nothing wrong with taking weed sometimes when you have those conditions. I never, at no point did I say, you shouldn't smoke weed when you have these conditions. You're just imagining it. You're inferring something that I never said, and I don't believe. Maybe we should ban drugs just so drug stance will fuck off? Yeah, maybe. I have smoked weed. Though I can't do it anymore, unfortunately. My body developed an increasingly unhealthy reaction to marijuana. Yes, I have weed allergies. Yeah, macaroni, but that's no way to live. Nobody wants to live in a permanent drug-fueled haze. The only people who do that are people who are running from something in their day-to-day life. Aren't you doing the same thing by taking meth? No. I don't take Adderall as a form of escapism because I can't cope with my non-Adderall life. I take it because it helps me concentrate. It's not a form of escapism. It's a form of ordering my thoughts. Oh, hello. I have nothing against people taking like drugs that like help them have a regulated mental state. Weed doesn't do that. At least not most of the time. It makes you high. Like I don't take Adderall for fun. Like it's not like I don't trip on Adderall. I don't take a pill of Adderall and go like,
so many long
damn
lines.
Would unhealthy escapism be the larger issue you're describing? Yeah, of course. Drugs just do this in the most holistic way because they literally affect your brain function. Whereas like escapism through media, you can enjoy and it's not as
Look at all the nicks.
direct.
They sound hungry.
All the what? Yeah, Sussy Baka 69. When done responsibly, I think it's defensible. It's just a lot of people run from problems. It's like this is the thing that terrifies me, okay? Because this is like the trap, you know? This is like the mind trap.
Take a nap.
That's really difficult to escape from it. I've never had this problem, but I know that people have, and it's absolutely horrifying, okay? And the problem is, sometimes life fucking sucks, okay? Sometimes it sucks externally, and sometimes it sucks internally. Externally, if life isn't going well, and internally, if you have mental conditions or trauma that are affecting your ability to live on a day-to-day basis, okay? And sometimes, a good way to make your life a little bit better is to take a chemical substance that alters your brain state. And in and of itself, there's nothing wrong with that. I have smoked weed. It is fun. I have gotten drunk on this stream and had a blast. But there is a big difference between occasional escapism to flavor your life and habitual escapism to avoid dealing with your life. And those are two very, very, very different things. So different.
I hear some emotional baggage.
Shut up. And they have very different consequences on people's psyches as well. And the problem is, the train that people end up running down, this incredibly destructive train, is that their real life gets worse because of their constant drug use. If you're smoking weed all the time or getting drunk all the time, you're probably not in a mind state that allows you to best manage whatever it is that's actually making your life shit from the outside.
I say it's good to see anything.
If you're drinking all the
right?
time, you're probably not working on your relationships. You're probably not making new friends. You're probably not working on bettering yourself or getting in shape or whatever else it is you want to do that will help you do that thing. And yeah, you're putting a lot of money towards that habit too. Is rent piling up? Do you have utilities to pay? Do you have medical expenses you need to cover? You can make all that pain go away for less money than it takes to visit a hospital, but the pain comes back after you're not high anymore.
I feel bad
It's a non-permanent solution. The escapism is pleasant for as long as it lasts, but it never lasts forever. And all your real-life problems get worse and worse and worse with time, until eventually you're in this downward spiral where the only thing you can do is continue to get higher to drink, because that's the only way you can cope with the life that's been made worse through your abstemiousness. That's terrifying. And there's no form of escapism more capable of doing this than drugs, because drugs just fundamentally rewire the way your brain perceives the world. It's true that you can fall down this road with a lot of other things. Porn addiction. You can, with sex addiction, that's a thing, believe it or not. You can fall down this road with a ton of different things, but none of them are quite as dangerous as drugs, because they just directly touch your wiring, you know? You can fall down that road with Vaush streams. But hey guys, talk to any former addict, okay? And they will tell you this, alright? That they, well, I suppose not any, but most former addicts will tell you pretty clearly that if you could chart their life as hard as it has been, they don't regret getting clean. Yeah, people who make it out, like they're always talking about how I'm so glad that I finally stopped doing this. I'm so glad that I finally got my life together, etc., etc. That's kind of a selection bias because they decide to get clean. While that's true, go ahead and find some current junkies. They're not exactly living the toppiest of lives. I mean, if you want, you can go to any back alley in Los Angeles and probably find people who are in the midst of not getting clean. And, well, you know, in my life experiences, it just does not seem like they're doing better than the people who did get clean. Just a feeling I have. Go watch BoJack Horseman, okay? Addiction's a problem. If you have the money, you can enjoy being a junkie? Not necessarily. If you have the money, you can financially survive being a junkie. Rich and famous drug addicts that get clean later often talk about how they were miserable the whole time they were doing that. Drugs are best when they're enjoyed like any other form of escapism. And I don't care what you're doing, by the way. If you want to do fucking heroin or meth or some shit, I don't think that's, like, morally wrong. It's dangerous, so you probably shouldn't do it for personal health reasons, but I mean, people go base jumping all the time, so when has safety ever been a concern for thrill seekers? If you want to, like, sample these things, do so with a full understanding of the risks involved, especially, for example, the fact that oftentimes addiction is not something you can really control, but it is the constant... Yeah, maybe heroin and meth are bad examples. I've never taken them and I don't know much about them. If they're destructive holistically, then just fucking don't. Look, the point that I'm trying to get at here is that
Wow. This
I don't
unruly
have
crowd
anything
takes me
against
back
drug
to my
use
circuses.
principally. I have
Except
something
we
against
never really had
relying
crowds.
on it, okay? It just doesn't make people's lives better. Reliance on pretty much anything doesn't make people's lives better. Missed one. Stop telling me I missed one! Chat, stop! But one thing that bothers me is that a lot of people on the left, or not just the left, by the way, because a lot of intellectual dark web Joe Rogan types do this even worse, but there's this constant obsession with downplaying any harm drugs can do. Like always, like they treat drugs like they're the simplest and easiest thing in the world to sample, like a song, like it's just a song you can enjoy. Everyone should listen to the music, you know. And it's just really, there's always the self-justification, you know. So I think we should be careful. I think that we should be careful, and I think that we should acknowledge the terror that addictive substances have to so many people's lives. Heroin and meth are completely life-ruining. Very few people can do them occasionally. Yeah, maybe I shouldn't have said that. Don't do this. Just be careful, guys. I consider myself very blessed in that I do not have an addictive personality. As far as I can tell, I've never experienced a chemical addiction. I know people in my family have been alcoholics, but I've never felt whatever that feeling is, you know? Addictive personalities aren't really a thing in psychology. Okay, I'm trying my best over here. I don't think that I have a propensity for forming chemical addictions. Absent TV, I have literally said that you can take weed. Please stop pretending that I'm saying it's not okay for people on PTSD to take weed. Please, stop. Look, I'm just gonna say this much, guys, okay? I know way more people whose lives have been hurt by drugs than people whose lives have been hurt by not taking drugs.
Because of all the talk on stage.
Orbatos, I didn't reject non-prescription use of weed.
Oh, yeah.
I didn't say it was only
to my
for
regular smell
escapism.
again.
I said it's often
Which, if
used
I'm
for
being honest, I've never
escapism.
heard any complaints
Why? I feel like I'm being gaslit whenever we have conversations like this. And like after everything cools down, I look at chat and people are like, well, that happened. You know, I just wish that Vaush hadn't actually advocated for the genocide of the Norwegian people. And I have to really assess my thoughts and wonder. You said that occurs often, which makes people defensive. Man, if I wanted to spitball it, you know what? I'll take the hard stance, and I would say that the majority of people who frequently use marijuana, probably to some extent or another, do so in an unhealthy way. I'll bite that bullet. Yeah, I feel that's the case. The majority of marijuana users are not like people responsibly using it in line with prescription or some, you know, highly regimented use or something. I feel like the majority, I don't know. Put it at 5149. Vaush, do you have a study for that one? I'm working off intuition, baby. Absent TV, you were the other person who was misrepresented. Can you chill? Vaush, I get your point, but can't so try saying it without being so condescending. Well, you yourself are taking meth despite not needing it for the vast majority of life. Okay, you're taking the time out, okay? If you actually believe that any of the points that I make are being subverted by the fact that I take Adderall as part of a prescription from a psychiatrist, then you have a... Here, it's... Okay, sit in the pool for a bit.